Okay, so we're doing a series right now on the Brahma Viharas. And the Brahma Viharas are the beautiful emotions that we want to cultivate. And so the first is metta. That's what we're going to do today. And it's often translated as loving kindness, but it actually really means loving friendliness. And Bhante Gunaratana prefers that translation because it has more of a sort of a same level. Like if you're being friendly with somebody, like it's their friend, it's somebody, that being kind might have an idea of the top down, like, oh, I'm in a better position than you, so I can afford to, show kindness to you. I mean, not necessarily, of course, but there's that possibility for that feeling. Whereas the friendliness is more on, you're my friend, I'm your friend, and we're sort of helping one another. Um, so the word metta and mitta, like my name is Sanghamitta, and it means friend of the Sangha. So metta, loving friendliness. And so I'm going to just screen share, and hopefully we've got some good voices in the room because I don't have the best voice here, but we're going to do a chant that has actually, I just realized I put up the chant. I've been preparing next week's talk, which is on compassion. So give me a second. I have to quickly I want to put up the metta chant. It's getting ahead of myself. Six. Okay. Go. So please join me. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart Should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Okay, so this morning I'm going to lead you in a guided meditation for metta. There's many different ways to do this. And on our website, if you go to our basic teachings, the teachings menu, and then the second item is the basic teachings. And in the first teaching, if you go to the entire PDF download, in the appendix section is Bhante Gun. Let me think. Am I going to say this wrong? Actually, it's not in lesson 1. It's in lesson 4, called Love and Joy. And in the entire PDF version, there's Bhante Gunaratana's version of doing the Metta Sutta. But in the introduction to that lesson, Love and Joy, before you get to the entire PDF, there's a link there for Bhante Sujato's discourses on metta, on loving friendliness. And it's a 10-part series. And if you tried to access this recently, I just recently found out that the links I had on there were dead. They had, it was linking us to the Santi Forest Monastery's website, and they have for some reason taken away. But thankfully, I had them download on my computer. So now the link is live again. So if you tried it and were disappointed, try again, because that link is now live, and we're not dependent on somebody else. It's sort of on CTBC's computer or on our website or something. So we have control of it now. Anyway, there are two lovely ways. So what I'm going to do is lead you in a meditation of a third way. So you have 3 different methods of seeing how metta goes. I'll just get the lights and we can start. So with any meditation, our goal is to bring our mind to stillness and to peace. And so we want to always, first of all, pay attention to our body. Because if our body is uncomfortable, then we're going to be squirming. And if our body's squirming, then we can't have our mind at rest. So now I'm noticing you two, your knees are up in the air. Are you comfortable? And also your hips are lower. So you're going to be squishing the nerves in in the groin here. So, I mean, if you're totally comfortable, fine, but it might be better to have to elevate.
Okay,
Yeah.
tried, but I wasn't sure, but okay.
Yeah, you want your thighs to be parallel to the floor. If they're sort of up in the air, then you're kinking off your vessels. And then normally, just excuse me a minute, I'll just help people in the room here. So those of you at home, get yourself comfy. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, well, you're pretty high up in the air. Let me see.
Yeah, this is makes me feel pretty hot.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to be actually a little bit higher.
Oh, higher? Okay.
Yeah, so try that. Wash your legs. And then put your knee down, yeah. Just see if you can, how does that feel?
Not much different.
Not much different. Yeah, you're still on an angle.
Obviously, I want my thighs up
You
here.
know, you want your thought, you want your knee. That's right. See how you're
Oh,
parallel now?
okay.
Yeah,
Oh, I see what you mean.
yeah.
Okay.
There, now you're not kinky here.
Mhm.
Yeah, and how does that feel?
Oh, yeah, I don't feel it.
Yeah, you don't want to kink because you got blood vessels and nerves
Right,
there.
right.
And then when you kink there, then you're going to be fine for the first few minutes, and then you're going to be in agony. Morning. Okay. So as I was saying, the first thing we want to do is get our bodies in a nice, comfortable, supported position, so that we're not squirming. Because if our bodies are still, then we have a better chance of allowing our minds to become peaceful and still. Okay. And then once we've supported our body, then I like to start with a body scan, just relaxing all the tension out of our body. So if you start with your head, just bring your attention to your scalp muscles and just image all those muscles, just sort of like drooping off your skull bones, just nice and loose and relaxed. And then put your attention on your eyes, all the little muscles around your eyes. Just let them be nice and loose and relaxed. And coming down to your jaw, relaxing the jaw. And then our neck. Our neck needs to support our head, which is actually quite heavy. But our head and our neck sort of connect on this rocker, like a rocking chair. Your head is like on a rocking chair on the floor, the first vertebrae. And so I usually just sort of rock my head back and forth, a few millimeters back and a few millimeters forward to find that perfect poised position where you're just perfectly balanced. Your head is perfectly balanced on your neck. And then your neck doesn't have to do any work. The muscles don't have to do any work to hold it up. And then you can just focus on all those neck muscles just drooping off your vertebrae, nice and loose and relaxed. And then your shoulders. Many of us walk around with our shoulders up around our ears. So just let your shoulders know they don't have to do anything right now and they can just relax down. Nice and soft and relaxed. And then just carry on down your arms, just imaging all the muscles of your upper and lower arms, just draping off your bones, loose and relaxed. And then all the little muscles of your hands, nice and relaxed. Then come back to your torso, the upper third of your upper third of the torso, so the upper back and the upper chest. Just image all the muscles just sort of draping off your rib cage, loose and relaxed, and coming down to the middle of your torso. Again, the muscles draping off your rib cage, your belly relaxed. Down to your pelvis, feeling it nicely supported by the floor or the chair or your bench. So all the muscles of your pelvis there can just be totally relaxed. And your thighs, again, feel them supported by however you're sitting. And just image the muscles just drooping off the bone, the thigh bone. And then down to your lower legs. All the muscles loose and relaxed. And finally, the feet, all the little tiny muscles in your feet. Nice and loose and relaxed. And you can go through this scan of your body as many times as you need to just get your body just completely relaxed and comfortable. But we try and maintain a straight back because we don't want to be so loose and comfortable that we fall asleep. So a comfy posture where we can stay alert. And once your body's comfortable, there's no aches or pains sort of speaking to you. And if my voice wasn't here, then you're going to become aware of your breath because it's the only thing happening. When your body's, you don't have a knee that's hurting or a shoulder that's dragging or anything else that's speaking to you, then the only thing that's happening is this breath that's gently coming in and gently going out. So that's the moment when the breath comes to you. That's the moment to start paying attention to the breath. So don't go out and try and look for it or grab it. Just keep relaxing the body until that comes to your awareness. And to me, I always think of it as a beach holiday. Instead of having to pay a whole bunch of money to fly somewhere, here we are sitting here. We're very comfortable, very relaxed, just like we're lying on a sandy beach. And our breath is just like the sound of the waves coming in and out. Breath coming in is like the waves lapping on the shore, and then the breath going out is like the waves receding. And you don't have to do anything to make those waves come in and out. You're just lying there on the sand, hearing them. So it's the same thing, sitting here with our breath. We're just sitting here, and then, oh, here comes an in-breath, and oh, there goes an out-breath. You don't have to do anything. Just be mindful of it. And at first, we're just very sort of gently mindful, just sort of noticing that, oh, the breath's coming in now. I mean, wordlessly, but just being aware that, oh, the breath's coming in. And then a little later, oh, the breath's going out. So we'll just do that for a few breaths. Don't have to be with the whole breath, just enough to know it's coming in or it's going out. And then when you're comfortable with that, we can just increase our mindfulness a little bit and just be with the breath long enough to sort of notice a quality of it. Like, does it seem like a long breath or a short breath? And it absolutely doesn't matter whether it's long or short. We're just training our mind to be a bit more mindful. So when that breath's coming in, just notice, does it feel like a long breath or a short breath or something in the middle? And the same with the out breath. Feel long or short or middling. Just slightly increasing our mindfulness. So we'll do that for a few breaths. Now we'll increase that mindfulness just a bit more. And now notice when the in-breath first starts to happen. And then stay with it until it ceases. And then notice, is there a little gap before you start to breathe out or not? Again, it doesn't matter. We're just training our mindfulness. So the in-breath starts, we can stay with it. Oh, now it's ended. Oh, there's a little gap there. And oh, now the out-breath starts. So catching the beginning of the out-breath. Mindfully staying with it. And then, oh, it stopped going out. And again, notice if there's a little gap before the next in-breath. And again, it doesn't matter if there's a gap or not a gap. We're just being mindful of what is. So mindful, being aware of the start of the in-breath, the continuation, the end, plus or minus a gap, the start of the out-breath, the continuation, the end, plus or minus a gap. So we'll do that for a few breaths. Do your best to let the breath come to you rather than you going out and grabbing it or trying to control it in any way. Just be very relaxed and comfortable and just notice the breath as it comes to you and goes away from you. And of course, out of habit energy, our minds are going to wander. They're going to start thinking about this or that and lose the breath. And that's just normal. So when you wake up to the fact that you're no longer with your breath, you've wandered somewhere, You just very gently, non-judgmentally, just kind of have a non-verbal, oh, and then gently turn your mind back to the breath. You come back to the breath by just reorienting your attention back to it. You don't come back to it by getting into a fight and trying to push away the thought that was there. Just turn your attention back to the breath. Gently, non-judgmentally. Now we're going to add some metta phrases to the breathing. So as you breathe in, just silently think to yourself, may I be, and then on the out breath, well. May I be well. And as you say that phrase, find some place in your body that does feel well, so that you have the feeling of wellness to go along with the phrase, may I be well. We'll just say that phrase silently to ourselves for a few breaths. Now change the phrase to, on the in breath, may I be, and on the out breath, happy. May I be happy. And see if you can find some place within your body that feels happy right now. So you have the feeling of happiness along with the phrase, may I be happy. And now bring to mind those of you that are live here at the monastery. Just bring to mind the other people in the room, and those of you on Zoom, just bring to mind the others on the Zoom room, and then send the phrases to them. May you be well. May you be on the in-breath. May you be well on the out-breath. We'll bring this second phrase and direct it to those in the Zoom room or the live room. May you be happy. Now bring to mind all the people and animals in the town where you're living right now. And let's send the phrases to them. So the first one is, may you be well. May you be on the in-breath, well on the out-breath. And just bringing to mind all the people and all the animals in the place where you live. Phrase, may you be happy. Send these phrases to everyone in the province or state that you're living in. May you be well. All the people, all the animals in Alberta or wherever you're living. May you be happy. Expand this out to the whole of North America. All the beings, all the people, all the animals in North America. May you be well. May you be happy. Let's expand even further and include South America. So all beings in North and South America, all the people, all the animals. May you be on the in-breath and well on the out-breath. Be happy. Now bring to mind the entire planet Earth, all beings living on the land mass of our Earth, all the people, all the animals, wishing, may you be well. May you be happy. Now image all the creatures that live in the skies, the birds, the insects, the bats, all the creatures that can fly, and wishing them, may you be well. May you be happy. Image all the creatures that live inside the soil, inside the earth, underground. All the burrowing creatures, all the insects, all the microbes. Keep our cell health, our soil healthy. Contribute to our own microbiome and our own bodies. Wishing, may you be well. May you be happy. Finally, image all the waterways on earth, the oceans, the lakes, the rivers and creeks, the marshes, and to all the creatures living in the waters, wishing, may you be well. May you be happy. Well, just before we end, just shrink your attention back into the room and give a final wish. May I be well. May I be happy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to go over the Metta Sutta sort of line by line. But before we start that, I'm just going to read from another sutta. That's from the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 10, number 4. And here the Buddha is having a conversation with this being, and the being says to the Buddha, "It's always auspicious for the mindful. The mindful prosper in happiness. Each new day is better for the mindful, and they're freed from hostility." And the Buddha replies, "It's always auspicious for the mindful. The mindful prosper in happiness. Each new day is better for the mindful." So far, he's agreeing with the being that spoke to him. But now on the last line, he disagrees. He says, "But they're not freed from hostility." And then he goes on to say, "But someone whose mind delights in harmlessness all day and all night, with love for all living creatures, they have no hostility for anyone." So what the Buddha is saying to us in this sutta is, it's really great to be mindful. It's very helpful and wonderful, but it's not enough. We need to have this heart of loving friendliness, this heart of metta. And so the practice of metta is important to do. And a lot of, some people have this as their major meditation object, and other people will maybe start their meditation, do a few minutes of metta meditation before they maybe move to the breath or whatever their other major topic of meditation is. Okay, so coming to the sutta, the Buddha starts with "This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace." Now, that might feel a little daunting, thinking, how skilled am I? But I listened to 2 nuns giving talks on metta. One was Aya Kema, and our Aya Himsa gave a talk about Aya Kema just last week. And so a wonderful teaching nun who's passed away now. And then the other person I listened to was Aya Karunika, and she lives in Australia, and she trained at Dhammasara, the nuns monastery that's closely associated with Ajahn Brahm's monastery, Bodhinyana. But she's now moved to Santi Forest Monastery, where I believe that she's leading that community. So also a very wonderful teaching nun. And what they're saying is, we start doing our metta practice right away, even if we're not totally skilled, because they're saying nobody's totally skilled in goodness or wholesomeness until we're fully enlightened, And so before that, we're working at it, we're nibbling at it, we're increasing our skillfulness, day by day, slowly. And as we do that, then our metta practice is going to become stronger. But we don't wait until we're enlightened because we need this metta to help us to move towards enlightenment. So now here the translation is "one who is skilled in goodness." Another translation would be "and one who is skilled in wholesomeness." And if you want to have a broad category of wholesomeness and unwholesomeness, you can think of the hindrances, all the things that hinder us on our practice. That's the unwholesome. And then the factors of awakening, the 7 factors of awakening, which I'll be speaking of more next week. That's what's wholesome. So that's what we want to increase our skills in. And the path of peace is the Noble Eightfold Path. Remember, the Buddha said that he taught one thing and one thing only, and that there is suffering, and he teaches the way to the end of suffering, referring to our mental, emotional suffering. As long as we have a physical body, it's prone to getting old, getting sick, and dying. So we can't stop the body from its ailments, but we can work on our mind and let go. And certainly when we work on our mind and purify our mind, make it more wholesome, then our body can feel less painful because we're not adding in that second arrow. We're not stabbing ourselves with the second arrow. We're not weeping and wailing about the condition of our body and then making our suffering much worse. It's just the baseline suffering, and we're not adding to it. So, so we want to have our Kalyana Mittas, our good spiritual friends, to help us to increase our skill in goodness or wholesomeness, and to totally understand what following the path of peace is. So coming to these talks, reading the suttas, listening to talks on YouTube, these are all ways to help us increase in our skill in goodness and to know the path of peace. And the most beautiful emotion, the most advanced emotion that we can develop is equanimity. Equanimity is this unflappable calm, regardless of what wonderful thing is going on or what terrible thing is going on. So that allows us to be clear in our mind and to know, is what I'm thinking or saying or doing wholesome or not wholesome? If we're all embroiled in an emotion, then our mind is not clear, and then it's harder to see, is this what I'm doing or saying? Is this wholesome or not wholesome? So equanimity really plays a role in here. And doing all of this, like if we're living a more wholesome life and we're following the Noble Eightfold Path, it's the path of peace. We're going to become more peaceful just doing this. Okay, next is let them be able. So this has two meanings on two different levels, like the mundane or worldly level of being able, and then the spiritual level of being able. So on the worldly level, being able means like learning some kind of a skill so that we can get a job, we can support ourselves. We're not, being a burden on society. We have a skill, we're able to do, our job, we can support ourselves. And then when we have a job, then, we're making an income, and that allows us then to share that to, we can make offerings to others in our family or in the community because we're able and have a job. On the spiritual level, being able means believing in ourselves that we have the ability, that we are able to become fully enlightened, to become fully awakened. If we have this sort of belief like, other people can do it, but not me, I'm not capable, well, you're just setting yourself up for a self-fulfilling prophecy. Everyone is capable. The Buddha gave many stories of people that you wouldn't imagine would be capable. Like a woman who'd lost all her family members and was so grief-stricken and so depressed and, was almost walking around in a psychotic condition. She became an arahant. She became fully awakened. And then there's Angulimala, who was the mass murderer. His goal was to murder 1,000 people, and he had this necklace of everybody's finger bone that he had murdered, and he had 999 of these finger bones. And then he tried to kill the Buddha, but the Buddha was able to teach him, and he became an arahant. He became fully awakened. So, the Buddha gives many examples of this, where people in situations where you think, how can they become awakened? Well, they did. So that's giving hope for all of us. We have this ability. It might take us many lifetimes, but it's important not to have the self-fulfilling prophecy of, I can't do this. But instead having the idea, I'm able. Maybe not today, maybe not this lifetime, but I am able. I'll just keep putting in the causes and conditions. I'll keep working on my wholesomeness. I'll keep working on the factors of awakening. Keep working on my morality. Then upright. Let them be able and upright. So words that go with this definitions are being truthful. When you're being upright, you're being truthful to yourself and others. You're a reliable person. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. You're responsible. You don't backbite and gossip. You don't set your friends one against another. Instead, you're supportive to your family and friends and others. Yeah, and you have this sort of inner strength, this island of refuge of peace within. You're not being pulled around all over the place by the emotions of others. You have this confidence within yourself, knowing that you're a good person. Now, of course, we all slip. we don't act perfectly. So it's really important that we realize we're training our minds. We're not enlightened. We're not perfect. And so we're going to slip and stumble and do things that aren't the most wholesome at times. And so it's really important to be compassionate towards ourselves, very gentle with ourselves. It's like if you're training a child. If a child makes a mistake or doesn't know how to do something, you don't get mad at the child. Like, you realize they're just a child. They don't know yet. And so then you very patiently and gently teach the child, age appropriate ways to be in the world. And so each of us, we at this moment, we're a product of all the causes and conditions in our life. And some of us have had more fortunate causes and conditions in our life and lives, and others of us have had less fortunate conditions. Maybe we've grown up in a family where there's been a lot of anger or hostility, or so we just may not have the skills. So we want to think of our mind as like this child that we're teaching. And so we don't want to teach the child with hostility and with anger. We want to teach our inner child with kindness, with gentleness, with compassion. So we have our ideal and we're working towards it, and we're going to slip and fail from time to time. Okay, the next one is being straightforward. So this is a bit similar. It's sort of telling the truth, not hiding behind social niceties, not pretending to be perfect. So you're honest, you're virtuous, you have integrity. You do what you say. Yeah. And again, being compassionate toward yourself when you screw up. At the monastery here, we were gifted with a set of cards, little cards. And so we pull out a new card every day. And so I pulled out 3 that are relevant to our talk today. These are witty sayings by Ajahn Brahm. And so this one is, everyone makes mistakes. The wise forgive themselves and learn from their mistakes. And this one is, life is never perfect. Have the courage to rest your mind in the midst of imperfection. Yeah. Okay, the next is being gentle in speech. When we're in relationship, there's always sort of differences that are going to appear. That's just normal because we all sort of perceive the world differently, or we have our different ideas or whatever. And so when you're in relationship, you need to sort of sort things out to be, especially if you're living together, you need to sort things out. So you want to be, kind or gentle in how you're sorting things out. So the Buddha, he says, if you're going to speak to somebody else, make sure that it's going to be beneficial. Like there's no point bringing something up if you know that it's not going to be beneficial. Do it with kindness, and then make sure you pick the right time. Don't try and speak to somebody you're in a relationship with if they're really tired or they're hungry or they're in a rush, they're having to rush off to do something, or they're very emotional. Because when we're emotional, we go into tunnel vision. And so you want to wait until they're settled down, have more equanimity, and then their field of view opens up, and then they can see, oh, other people's opinions are just as valid as mine, or, other people's ideas of how to do things in the world is just as valid as mine. And, because we live together, we have to come to some kind of an agreement. But, but when you're in that tunnel vision, you can't see that. So don't try and talk to somebody when they're highly emotional. Just give them time until they've settled down. And those of us who know the teaching, we know that we can use the holding technique to, when we're emotional, to get ourselves settled down. And one of the relationship counselors that I trained with, he said, don't go for a compromise. He said, really be creative and see if you can go for a win-win. When you're in a relationship and you have disagreements about something, just see if you can figure out a solution that's a win-win solution, not a compromise where everybody sort of feels shortchanged. Okay, the next is humble and not conceited. So even if you have some skills and whatever, just realize that we're all fallible human beings and that we're doing the best we can. And if you're having to work with somebody or you're being with somebody that doesn't have the same kind of skills as you don't want to have this sort of conceited attitude towards them. You just want to realize they haven't had the opportunities or whatever that you've had, in order to develop the skills that you have, and maybe you can't see it right now, but they have their own skills. They'll have a skill set. Maybe it's not showing up at this particular moment when you're interacting with them, but they have their own set of skills. And so if we're with somebody that doesn't have the skills we have, we want to be compassionate, not conceited, compassionate. They just didn't have the same opportunity, the same opportunities that we had. Contented and easily satisfied. Yeah, if we're always wanting something different or something more than we have at the moment, then we're in this constant state of feeling a lack. Like I don't have this situation, I don't have this object or whatever. And so the more we can just be contented with what we have, the more at ease and the more peaceful, the more comfortable that we're going to feel. And then we have another card by Jan Brown that says, where I am is where I want to be. This is good enough. Yeah, so we can bring a lot of peace into our lives with contentment. The next is unburdened with duties. Now we can look at this on two levels. When the Buddha was saying this to his monastics, the tradition was that when monks and nuns would, don the robes and start training, they just had a few chores to do, to help out in the monastery, but they didn't have any teaching duties or other things. They didn't, as a monastic, you don't have like a job where you have to make money or whatever. You're being supported by the community. And so you have this, you're unburdened with duties, so you can really spend your time on developing your meditation practice and hopefully, realizing some of the levels of awakening, of enlightenment, so that after several years of this being unburdened with duty so you can focus on your own practice, then when you've learned those skills, you've got some levels of enlightenment, then you can share with others. You can teach, you can teach because you've been unburdened with duties and you're able to do that. Now, those of us in lay life, we've got families, we've got children, we have jobs. So we do have duties. So, but we want to be unburdened by them. We don't want to be, weeping and wailing and saying, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that, because that's stabbing ourselves with that second arrow. Instead, we just want to accept this is the reality. I have this job that I need to do to, support myself, to support my family. I have children to raise, like whatever. And so we just accept this is the reality and go about wholeheartedly fulfilling our duties and not weeping and wailing and stabbing ourselves with that second arrow and like burdening ourselves with this reality. And frugal in their ways. So I think that's just sort of being frugal is sort of talking about being contented and easily satisfied, not being burdened with duties. And peaceful and calm, this is the result of everything that we've, talked about so far. That's sort of an outcome. If we're being wholesome, we're being virtuous, we're having integrity, we're being kind, then there's nothing to feel remorseful about. If we're doing things that aren't so good, then we have a lot of remorse, and then there's no peace within our bodies and minds. But if we're doing everything that's been talked about so far, then the result is peace and calm. Wise and skillful, that's just a repetition of what was said in the first line. Not proud and demanding in nature. So again, that's going back here to the humble and not conceited. So it's just saying it in a different way. And then, as I mentioned, when we're in relationship, sometimes we have different ideas than our partners or our family on how to do things. But, we don't want to be demanding. We want to have an open heart and realize, well, their wishes are valid as well. Let's talk about this gently and figure this out. See if we can come to some kind of win-win situation. But don't be just standing there demanding that it be your way. Yeah. And then let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. So I use this phrase a lot, like my health is in a certain state right now where I have a lot of foods that I'm not supposed to eat because my kidneys are not excreting the byproducts. And I'm often tempted, for various foods that are on the no list. They're delicious and I want to eat. And so I try and remember, image one of my Kalyanamitas, one of my spiritual friends sort of sitting on my shoulder. And so when there's that big temptation to do something that's not good for my body, then I try and imagine this wise Kalyanamitta sitting on my shoulder. And then that helps me, not always, but it often helps me to resist doing something that's unwholesome. So these are all sort of like the preconditions. But as I said, we're not going to wait until these are perfect before we do our metta. We're going to start spreading loving friendliness right from the get-go. And we're just slowly over time going to be working on all of these conditions that are going to make our metta practice much stronger. So when we get here, this is when the Buddha first starts talking about the metta practice. And just before we go over these lines, I just want to say that it's important to realize that this metta practice, its main object, its main goal is to purify our own hearts. It's to help our own selves to let go of the hindrances. And a big hindrance is ill will. And so if we're wishing well to everyone, And metta is unconditional. So I practice sending metta to all these world leaders that are, causing wars to be happening and doing things that I feel are, not ethical or whatever. But metta is unconditional. And so, so my practice includes trying to send it to these beings, because metta is for all beings, regardless of how they're behaving, because all beings are just, they're all just trying to be happy and doing it the way that the causes and conditions in their life sort of train them, and so sadly for some people they're trained that, yeah, to be selfish, that, you just have to bulldoze over the needs of other people, to get your own happiness met. And so they haven't been exposed or haven't taken on board these spiritual teachings that we're trying to train in. So anyway, ill will is a major hindrance for our purification of our own hearts. And so, and, wishing others well, that's allowing our own hearts to come to peace, to let go of this ill will. So the primary thing we're doing is being really tender towards our own hearts. And then maybe a secondary effect is maybe this wishing well to people will be helpful to them, and that'd be beautiful. But the major thing is purifying our own hearts. So here's the Buddha telling us how to do the metta practice. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none. The great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. So we can't control others, but we certainly want to be making sure that we're not deceiving anyone, that we're not despising anyone, that we're not holding anger and ill will in our hearts, and that we're not harming anyone. And then we wish this for others, but it's a wish. We're not in control of others, but we can make an effort for ourselves. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. So that's our own hearts, free from hatred and ill will. And then we do this in all positions, whether standing, walking, seated, or lying down. So the Buddha is encouraging us to do it at all times, unless we're falling asleep. Then let yourself fall asleep. But as long as you're not drowsy, then to have this attitude of metta in your heart. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Yeah, and this clarity comes from doing this practice, because we're able to have more equanimity. We're not embroiled in irritation or hostility or ill will. Okay, so that's the the Metta Sutta. So I open it up now to, oh, just a minute, let me stop the recording.